Is the holy mountain forbidden to men?
Stand on the sacred mountain.
Bring me to your holy mountain.
And the mighty mountains that border the goblin wastelands. It was the dragon in the mountain.
Strangers carried me to mountaintops to see holy men.
The mountains are fair teeming with goblins.
In the forbidden mountains.
She lives atop a mountain.
After the dragon took the lonely mountain.
Is the holy mountain forbidden to men?
In the forbidden mountains.
Good evening, or in my case, almost good morning.
Oh my gosh, right.
Thank God it's a Friday, because I'll be sleeping in tomorrow, you better believe it. Although I'm supposed to cut the grass, I don't think that's going to happen. Hey guys, how's it going? You may have noticed that this episode is called Portals, Stargates, Liminal Spaces, and Thin Places. We have a crap ton of information, and I don't even know, frankly.
Just like the title intimates.
Yes, it does indeed give a glimpse into the reality of our excess of investigation and research.
It is 4 dragons all the way tonight.
My God, to me, this was like exponential 4 dragons when I was researching. I was like, too much information.
It's like it's dragons to the 4th power.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not just times 4.
Right. Not just times 4. It was to the exponential 4. Yeah, so we have really, I hope you guys think it's a very interesting show. I had a lot of fun and, frankly, stress gathering all this information and condensing and trying to make it, good God, it's not even concise. He is good. And it's not concise, but I'm going to try my best. We'll
parse it down to, it's elephantine in size. But we'll just eat it one bite at a time. That's the way you consume an elephant.
I mean, it feels like elephantitis, frankly, but hopefully that's not the actual case. Let me give you guys our quick plugins, man. If you are not a member, what are you doing? It's only $3 a month. Jeez Louise. You can head over to Patreon to sign up for $3, or you can do that on Spotify, whichever is your preferred choice for information. We have like four episodes that are dropping real soon here. This is going to be the 4th, and hopefully in like the next, I think it's going to probably take me a whole week to really finish uploading and finish all these crazy episodes. So hopefully we'll have these out quick.
Everything tweaked.
Yep. Guys, you can always follow us at solo.to/CTDW. And find us on all the interwebs, on all the social media pages and stuff. Facebook, Instagram.
And if we're on them, what are you doing on them?
I know. Like, what are you doing? Like, come say hi. X and TikTok are the ones that we currently subscribe to. I think we have Wisdom, but I never went back, so I don't know anymore.
I have not even looked at that app, so I am not associated.
I might just like start posting like sound clips or something on there. That might be interesting.
Is Wisdom supposed to be like the equivalent of X?
Wisdom is like, no. Wisdom is basically an audio platform where you can just like have live conversations with people. You like hop on and but you don't see each other. And you can talk to people
like
from
Spotify.
Spotify?
Oh, but it's live? Oh, okay.
It's it's not really I mean, I guess it's kind of like podcasting.
It's like my mom
like
and
talking.
her her speech to text on her.
No. It's like you and I not knowing each other and just showing. It's like if we didn't know each other and we showed up somewhere. And I get it. You're trying to be clever.
They used to call that a party line back.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's like an actual chat room. Like that's basically what it is. Yeah. And you can.
Sounds like
it's weird.
A thing.
It is a thing. I mean, and there's stuff as well. So, you guys can also, if you're looking to catch us on our full episodes, you can do so on Spotify and YouTube. You can also, I've been slow in doing it on Rumble, but I'm slowly uploading the catalog. I am trying to shift us that way because we already got a strike, and I don't even, like, that video's been up there. It was, like, behind the paywall, so, like, you had to have the link to even go watch the video, and we still got a strike. So I was like, I'm not wasting my time here anymore. Like, if we get a following, great. If we don't, I frankly don't care. Sucks, but it is what it is, right? So go follow us there.
Spotify is our home. So
Spotify is our home, and I like it there.
Follow us on Spotify.
On the Spotify. If you wish follow us on the Spotify, we will never cross over to the Fourth Reich. I mean, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So, make sure you head all the way over there to Spotify or to YouTube, or rather Patreon. Sign up for $3 if you want to become an all-access behind the paywall member for only $3 a month. And if you don't, that's okay too. We're here to hang out and enjoy our time. This is a ministry and God is growing it, and I'm excited. And I have some more information at the end of this. So if you want to fast forward to the end, if you're a paid subscriber, you'll get the whole story.
All the good things.
Yeah, it's true. You will. But if you're a paid subscriber, you'll get the whole story. If not, you'll get just enough to make you angry and wish you had listened to the whole thing. And you pay the $3. Anyway.
You know what? That's not even the price of a muffin at Starbucks.
It's really not.
And I like how they say for the price of a coffee, but I stop at Starbucks a couple of times a week because there's a barista there that I think is amazing. And honestly, I go because she's that good of customer service. But I pay like $7 for a cup of fruit coffee. And I'm not going to lie, this year I joined the pumpkin spice brew, which I never thought I would do. It sounded really gross, and then I tried a cold
pumpkin
brew.
Spice is great, and I like.
It's so good.
It's really good. Like I love pumpkin. Man, I like most of the time it's all the women are like, oh, I'm so excited about pumpkins, and I'm like, I am too. I mean, maybe not the same way as you, but it's delicious.
I don't know, man. I can drink Trente. Cold brew pumpkin spice something with coconut milk, whatever, blah blah, for like 4 or 5 hours at work, and find that I don't even want to eat food because that just filled me up. And it tastes divine.
The milk is suckled from a Himalayan goat that's
found. No. You remember that that meme that made you laugh so much? They're making almond milk.
That's right.
I gave them cows.
I gave them cows. What are they doing?
Coconut milk for this girl.
Oh yeah. That's
that cow's milk is real hard on my tongue.
Almonds is not acceptable. Coconut is acceptable. It's already like that. But when you go and
is already like that.
You squeeze the crap out of almonds to get milk. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? To all you almond milk drinkers. I mean, try and drink an almond. That would be impressive. Almond milk drinkers. No hate. My wife is an almond milk drinker. She doesn't like the taste, but it's,
See,
you get old,
like
the stomach doesn't like it. I do too. Not almond milk. It's gross.
No,
I tried it.
I like almonds. I like Jordan almonds. I always keep Jordan almonds on my desk at work. So that's like the candy that makes me think of my Nana. My Nana, when we would go to the movies, she'd always get Jordan almonds. So they're like, remember back at weddings when you would get the little thing and it had like 3 hard candies in it and there was a nut in the center? That's a Jordan almond.
Huh.
No, they're just like a sugar, very hard sugar shell coating, but it's like vanilla tasting.
I wonder if
So
those are what we call in Spanish garapiñados, which is literally like just like coated sugariness. I don't know what it's called. I don't know.
real
Anyway,
good though.
neither here
And
nor
my
there.
nana always ate them at the movies, so I have an affinity for them.
Nana. Anyway, guys, that is the spiel, as we always do it. You know how we roll. Don't worry. I will put the chronology, the timestamps on our video. So if you don't want to hear us jiving away, we'll go listen to someone else. No, I'm just kidding. You guys, you guys can skip to that. So we are going to get started with this episode and kind of talk about why we chose this episode, which is titled, once again, the first of apparently many installments of Portals, Stargates, Liminal Spaces, and Thin Places, because there is a boatload to talk about. So I'm going to let Shell talk about why we chose this topic.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna make me decide.
Do you want me to say it? I will if you want.
Go for it. You say it.
Okay, I'll introduce the topic.
I'm gonna show you Jordan Almonds. So I'm busy doing things that matter.
Yes. Well, I'm glad someone's finally doing it. Ooh, I like that background, by the way.
There you go. Those are
those are okay.
Almonds.
Those aren't bad.
They're very yummy.
All right. On. Well, so what's a thin place?
Jordan Almond sales will go up this week.
What's a thin place? It's a place where Jordan Almonds are. No, I'm kidding. A thin place is essentially what we would call basically a bleed over between our realm, that is the earthly realm, and the other realm, which I would call the heavenlies. I would think that that's probably the most ambiguous and broad term that I can use, is just out of this world.
So the material realm versus the spiritual realm?
Not necessarily, although that's part of it. I do think that plays a part. And actually, Shelley and I were just like, hey, maybe we don't agree on all of our terminology. Maybe we should find some common ground on that. I don't know if we do or don't. We might,
we don't,
but we're
totally
about to find out.
We just don't 100% mesh with it.
Yeah, well, we're, four dragons, so let's figure it out.
So that's true.
I'm going to throw it out there. Well, anyways, so the reason that we're talking about this is because, one, I think it's important for us to think about, because it clearly is the way God designed this universe. And I mean that in the sense that I talked about last time. Universe, a single verse, a single...
Right. It is one universe.
A self-contained unit, right?
Dimensions.
Right. And there is crossover. There's bleed over, man. There really is, and we're going to talk about some of those spaces. And I think it's important for us to, as humans, frankly, but definitely as Christians, to understand what those repercussions are, and maybe not exactly why they happen, but probably a lot of why they happen. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But really today, we're just going to be talking about these places in and of themselves. And in the future, we're going to be talking more about rituals. We're going to be talking about ceremonies. We're going to be talking about how the body, the human body, and frankly, probably animal bodies as well, right? Vegetables,
at least to
fruits,
some degree, based on
plants.
Vegetables, fruits, and
I know
plants.
You're not following me, but that's what they used in sacrifices, Shell.
Well, I mean, even God has sacrifices of grain, the grain offerings. So.
Well, let me give you a perfect example. Just since we're already, guys, this is going to be a super wild one because there's like tons of topics, and so we're going to try and stay on the topic. But I was just reading this morning, when the angel of death passes over the door, over the houses of the Israelites so that they won't die, what do they use to put the blood on the doorposts and on the... I learned this today. It was the lintels and the jambs. What do they use? What is it, Shaw? What did you say? Hyssop. That's
Hyssop.
exactly right. And I had to look it up, and I was kind of curious. Well, why hyssop and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I didn't really figure it out, but it kind of looks like a brush, frankly. So, I mean, that makes sense.
Well, it grows that way. It grows. It's very easy to make it into a broom.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, too.
Yeah. So that's why
it
it was very easy for the application with hyssop
makes sense.
Or hyssop
makes sense.
brooms.
And they're very pleasant for a lot of people as far as the smell goes, and they have flowers, which is rare.
It's a nice
herb.
smell. It's if you look at some of the broom plants, like Mexican broom, it smells so good. It's pretty.
You ever seen those giant brooms, by
yellow.
the way? When those old ladies are like sweeping the street in Mexico, they're crazy huge, dude.
No, I like the plant. Like, I love those plants because it's a lovely floral scent that they make. But then you dry them out and you make yourself brooms out of them. I mean, broom plants are.
It's almost like God gave us things to use them for things. Anyway,
like make tools and stuff, huh?
Or something. I don't know. Whatever. So, having said that, let's kind of hash this out real quick. Shell was asking, she was like, well, how do we talk about this? Like, what is it that we're trying to get at with these thin places and liminal spaces? What's going on here with these gates, these portals, and all this good jazz? And I said, well, it's where the realms bleed over. And Shell goes, I like dimensions. And I go, well,
I do like dimensions.
I do too, but I think that they're two different things. And I use those words for very specific. I mean, you know me. I use those words for very specific things. Would you like to put forth your reasons for using these?
I do. So dimensions, we dwell in 3 dimensions.
We do indeed.
Really, 4 dimensions because time is another dimension.
We swim one way on the fourth scale. Ooh,
we do pretty much just go one way for the most part. That is very true. But time is not concrete. We know that there are things that skew time, if you will. Mm-hmm. For instance, mass. You have to have a mass. You have to have a corporeal body, or a touchable, tangible. You have to have mass. And time is different on Mars than it is on Earth.
It is indeed.
For that matter, if you take 2 twins who are twins, who are born at the same relative time, and you send one into space and you keep one on Earth, they age differently. Their age is no longer the same.
What is that thought experiment called? Is it the Gemini or something? I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, I don't even remember.
Yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It's very interesting, by the way.
Yeah, it's super cool. When we started doing space stuff, that's one of the things that we checked in. It was Einstein. Was it Einstein?
Relativity?
It was Einstein. And he was frustrated, they say, when he died, because there was still so much about dimensionality that he thought more would be uncovered, than was at his death. But before him, the general understanding by the general populace was 3 dimensions, and then he said, well, time is a 4th dimension, and people said, oh, that makes beautiful sense, look at that math. And I think shortly after his death, mathematically we had discovered about 10 different dimensions. The Bible says there are 10. And indeed, I guess I should find exactly where that is and parse it down.
Agree. I hear that often, and I'm like, I wonder where
sorry, that's at. I have not, and I will give myself a note to do that.
We will
week.
Circle back.
We will circle back on that one. So
but
that
for now,
is it's possible that they're up to about 24 dimensions. Who knows? You know what? God is limitless. And if you track with us, then you will know that we have already before talked about the fact that we really believe that Adam and Eve dwelt in multiple dimensions, that they were shut out with, that they did have an instant death to the day they ate of the fruit.
Yep.
They didn't die in every way at that time. Then again, we don't die. Shush. Sorry, guys. I hyper dogs. We don't die in every way, even when we, die and we think it's very, very complete, because it's death to the dimensions that we are used to dwelling in.
Yeah.
But there were more dimensions, and we know that the spirit realm
we had access
inhabits. Right. I think that they dwelt in them all the time.
Oh yeah,
like
certainly.
When we were talking earlier about the serpent, I think that the serpent was a dragon as well as a seraph.
Yeah.
I still don't know if I think it's Hillel. I mean, Old and New Testament does.
I'm actually
does
not.
lend.
I'm not convinced that it is at all.
I'm not convinced.
Really not.
I do get where we all think that it is Lucifer who is Hillel.
Well, it's just easier to have a focal point as an enemy. I mean, it's always easier that way. That's how humans are.
And so for me, dimensions are more concrete for me to wrap, and maybe that's what it is for me, is dimensions seem to fit into more of a package for me, and I like that better. Realms are more ethereal, and
that's so funny. I think of it the other way around. That's super funny.
Do you really?
I really do it.
I feel like realms don't have
So let me tell you where I'm coming at from when I hear the word realm. When I think of realm, I think of earth realm. And then when I think of the heavens, right, I think of like the second or the immediate heaven, which is what many would call I'm not trying to get into this topic right now, but many would call the dome. That would be the first heaven. I'm not going there. That's actually not what I'm talking about at all.
So the atmosphere.
Yes, the atmosphere I would call.
See, again, I will gravitate to a more scientific terminology.
That's fine.
That's
fine. I'm okay with it.
Comfortable.
I'm okay with it. I don't mind being the dude that talks like he's playing Dungeons and Dragons. Doesn't bother me one bit. Then I would call the space. I would call the astral realm. Right. I mean that's where the astros are. And then beyond that, I would call the highest heaven, the realm of the highest heaven. So to me, these are physical places that we can be in, and that's why I like to refer to them as realms. For me, dimensionality is important because it's how those, maybe that's a better way to say it, because those realms can interact, right? But I would say that dimensionality is how those realms interact, like how they're able to bleed into one another, like in what ways that they're able to be traversed. And that's I know that's a super ambiguous way to say it, but also, to be fair, nobody freaking understands what the dimensions are exactly anyway, so it's sort of like, okay.
I mean, all of it. I guess because I work in
that's what it is to me.
logistics.
Realms to me are physical places you can go, and dimensions are layers within those actual physical places. That's the way I think of it.
I give dimensions to freight forwarders a lot.
To what?
Freight forwarders. I know the companies who move freight between nations.
Ah, I see. I was going to tell you a very common Taiwanese phrase, which is "gong san xiao," which means like, "What the crap did you say?" That's, so from now on, you'll know when I go "gong san xiao."
So
you know exactly what I'm saying.
When I give a dimension, when I give the dimensions, I give the height, length, width, and weight. So
Okay.
what literally these dimensions that are going to go into a truck and fill this space, because they are the dimensions. And so for me, it's categorical, and that's why I like it.
So I think that you and I think
dimensions,
of them the other way around. Yep.
it may be, because to me a realm encompasses so much more. Like the realm of Rome, it's hard to pin.
Agreed. But it is. But when you're in that realm, you know you're there. See, and that's when, to me, dimensionality is like a very ethereal, it's not really. It doesn't feel like it's really anchored to a particular thing. That I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to the 7th realm now, and what the crap does that mean? Like, where are you going? You know, and how are you doing that? Now, I have theories about how we reach those kind of, like, those planes. Maybe that's a better word, planes, because that's kind of the way I think of dimensions. They're sort of like planes, even though I know that's not really a super great way to say it, because I don't really necessarily think that they're like one on top of the other. I think that they all sort of overlap, and they're used for different things. I mean, that's the way I think about it. So it's sort of like, there you go. I almost said ándale. There you go. That's how you can think of it. Ándale. That's así lo puedes pensar. That's how you can think of it. So it's like órale. So it's like you have a picture. Like if you're looking at a photo, and have you ever seen that you can kind of cover it with a filter, right? That's how I think of dimensions. You're still looking at the same photo, but you're looking at it through a different lens, literally through a different lens. And because you do that, there are aspects that change to that physical reality. And that's the way I think of dimensions and realms.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
So we are saying very close to the same thing. Or
I figured you and I are probably on the same page.
Yeah.
For the most part, I would say that
we just see the terms is backwards from each other.
I think so. Because to me, we don't have very many realms, but we have a lot of dimensions. That's the way I think of it. Does that make sense? There's only a limited space. I mean, I guess you could say the realm of Mars, if you want to. You see
dimensions as subsettings of realms, is how you're seeing it.
Correct. Okay. I see them. I see them as filters through which to view realms.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I get it. So it's still our thin place, whichever of those concepts you prefer. It is a place where the physical realm and some aspects, at least, the
inexplicable places, right? That's frankly what they are. Like, think that we don't have a way to account for all these phenomena because we're human and we're cut off by sin. Our sin interjected in the flow between heaven and earth. You know, I mean, that's right. That's where we're at. And so for me, that's
off that highway.
That's exactly the way I think of it. And in a way, I do think, because I've told you this, I think that when we get to when we're able to go to heaven, that it's going to be a physical place. I do think it's a physical place. But when we get our glorified bodies, we're going to be able to do very, very, very drastically very different things with those bodies than the ones we have now. So
good point. And a case in point for that would be Jesus after his resurrection, when he goes in and eats with the disciples and then walks through the wall and disappears.
Yeah. And you know what's fascinating about that?
And he's in his glorified body at that time. Exactly.
Well, this is something I think I mentioned on the live the other day. If I didn't, I'm just going to reiterate it, since we're talking about this topic, and it will come up. I guarantee you, it's going to come up later on this. But I am beginning to come of the idea that the way that angelic or Elohimic creatures, sentient beings, come into our realm in a physical sense is that they allow their bodies to vibrate at certain frequencies so that they literally are able to form physical, what we would call physical mass here that corresponds to our earth, that corresponds to
Well,
our
or they changed their
realm.
vibration to be perceptible within the range of vibrations we can perceive.
You're giving a lot more color to what I just said. Basically, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I think, and I think, which is why I think that God was like, all right, that dude Nimrod, we're gonna shut that sucker down because that fool is gonna figure out how to vibrate at the right levels and come here, and he can't be doing that. Sorry, bro, it's not gonna work out. So anyway, not to
agree. No,
beat a dead horse.
I see where you're coming from with that. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And that's
now?
why when God said His voice, the said made.
Yeah, dude. It's all. I'm telling you guys later. I was telling Muthana the other day that that's precisely what it is. I go, dude, I don't believe in a multiverse. I believe in a universe, a single verse that God made. We don't need we don't need a multiverse. That multiverse is easily solutioned by energy filtering through dimensions into our own realm, right? There's clear. I mean, that's clearly happening. Astrophysicists and all sorts of very, very intelligent people, way more intelligent than I am, have detected that there is energy coming in from other dimensions. It's not. I mean, it's not really an arguable thing. It's
looking
happening.
for the boson Higgs.
There's a prime example.
Particle. And honestly, we'll get into that part of thin places.
Yeah.
When we talk about what did we term that? Quantum physics and.
Good Lord, I don't even know what you called it.
I know, I have it written down somewhere because it's what old people do.
Are you kidding? Oh, well, I am old too. I guess that's what I do too. These old people. These old people.
I don't know. We'll get to you. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
It's coming in the next few weeks because we're going to spend some time on this topic, and actually, we're trying really hard. I don't know if it's going to happen. We're going to try our hardest to make this coincide so that this thin places topic overlaps right in the week right before Halloween, because it's important to be thinking about this kind of stuff. That's where we're really trying to go with it. We're going to see if it happens or not, but if nothing else, we will be on that vibe. 3
to 4 weeks to get all that down, and I think we'll have it. It's funny because when we first started this topic, which I think I suggested this to begin with.
Maybe you did.
And then I was like, I don't feel like I'm finding anything. And then it was like, went from trickle to, and there's all the things, and Ricky's like, there's too much stuff.
It's like, I don't have any hair left to pull.
He was like, no, I have to put on a cap.
Nah. Yes, well, this only added to my male pattern baldness.
But there's plenty there. So okay, I think we have beaten difference between realm and dimension. You guys, I'm sorry, my office. Oh, Kat, what did you do? Is the circle of life. The 2 dogs are in here, obviously acting insane. And then I have a couple of cats in here, and apparently Queenie, the cat who makes her presence the most well known,
hello, Queenie,
pulled off the bird's cover off of her cage. So now my bird is like, what are you guys doing? It is the middle of the night.
Oh, poor thing.
So I just looked over, and the bird's cage's covering is off, and so the bird's going to get loud. So I'm going to have to cover this bird again really quick. I do apologize for all of my animal shenanigans. While I'm doing this, oops, I just dropped my phone. Rick, do you want to talk a little bit about recapping the megaliths?
I absolutely do. As we were. We are going to go ahead and do a quick recap kind of some stuff that we talked about 4 months ago, I guess it was.
Yeah.
5, something like that. Well, it's been a while. Ever since, it's been about 3 months, 3 or 4 months, ever since Antarctica exploded and all these people found us on Facebook. How could I forget?
So that would have been June.
Yeah, guys, so we're really we'll just touch on some sites real quick, but more than anything, we're just going to kind of touch on what these types of sites are. And they're relevant for what we're talking about because they are included in thin places. And these are, I don't want to say man-made, I will say sentient-made. They are artificially made places for communing with the other realms, as I would put it, right?
Well, yeah,
they were of dimensionality. Go ahead.
Definitely places made to be thin places, made
Absolutely.
to be portals.
Yep.
Portals, stargates.
And I think we'll have to define, I don't know if we'll have to define those a little bit better as time goes on, but I think possibly we will, because I think that they have to do with potentially different kind of ritualistic things, actually. So that's kind of an interesting thought in and of itself. But I won't waste my time with that. So megaliths, let's start there. That is probably the easiest one to start with. We would define this, and we just did actually before we hopped on. If you think of a better definition, please let us know. But it is essentially any kind of structure that is inordinately large, does not require mortar, and more importantly, in our view,
we can't replicate them today.
And in our view, they have Elohimic implications for their creation. They were not
use
made.
Angel technology.
Absolutely. And we're talking about places like Machu Picchu, which is just, if you've never looked it up, go freaking look it up. And if you're stumbling on this and you haven't watched our megalithic structures episode, which just really just goes over megaliths in general that are littered all over the earth, and we didn't even do like a fraction of justice to how many there are on the earth. It's ridiculous, frankly. Go watch that. I think it's episode 13 of the CTDW. But if you go check out Machu Picchu, you will see they believed it was a fortress. I mean, just stones that are stupid big. I mean, stupid big.
Yeah. Dozens of tons.
Yeah.
Each.
And they fit together perfectly. And not only do they fit together
you see the ones that are like choo 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 choo.
Yeah.
Choo.
Yeah. Maybe we'll pull something up real quick. Let's see, Machu.
May as well. While you're at that too, Machu Picchu is a place that people go to be healed.
Yep. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up just now. That's really good.
Which is why we say that megaliths are thin places and sacred spaces.
All the rhymings today.
Right. We're Dr. Seussian today.
Indeed.
When I don't know, I put a search in YouTube because, as you do when you are working and researching in tandem, and I got a video came up of like the 10 most famous places of healing or something to that effect. And Machu Picchu is one of them. Stonehenge is another one. Which also, again, Stonehenge is a megalith. Those stones are gigantic, and they're I would say on average about 50 tons each, and then they've got the dolmen, the top stone. It's up, I don't know, 2-3 stories is how high it was lifted up. They've been there forever. Nobody knows who put them there, who made them.
All I can say is,
and they're also places of healing.
When you get to Machu Picchu, all you can hear is I couldn't resist. Sorry.
The heck are those H's?
Check the. I know
the
it's super
H
weird, right?
stones.
It's super weird.
Where's my favorite one? Is it
the gigantic one? Is that what you're thinking of?
The one that has the wee little
crab.
nub, like there. That shows.
Good Lord, it's crazy. And some, I never get tired of seeing these, man. They're just outrageous. They really are outrageous. These.
I like them better when you have a person standing there.
There's a nub
so
right
that
there.
You can see. Yeah, there's a nub.
There's a bunch of them. Look at that.
Look at. Yeah, I'm pointing at the screen like anybody can.
You're talking about this guy right here?
Yes. No.
That's crazy.
The way yes, right where your cursor is.
Yep. Look at these super awkward stones. And let me give you guys.
When you look at that one stone, it is. I mean, it's a polygon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Are there 10 different
1, 2, 3,
90-degree angles?
5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh no, there's more.
9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 sides to that polygon. That's crazy, man. Imagine that cut. You know what's more astonishing? Here, let's give you guys kind of a visual of Machu Picchu in general. One of the doorways there. It's really cool. Really, really cool photo. One of the astonishing things about Machu Picchu is that the blocks are rounded. That's just crazy.
Look at that one over to the far left of the screen.
Oh, crap. Sorry.
Arg.
Here we go. This will help. Come on. There it is. Look at that insane rock face. Like, what?
It's huge.
It's insane.
Where are the people? I mean, that looks like 5 or 6 stories.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a particular
But it's so wide, it's hard to tell, but I like it when you get a person and then you're like, oh,
yeah.
Now I have scale.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Maybe.
So Machu Picchu is on a mountain.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then that mountain is made taller by the structure.
Yep. Let's see if we can get a quick comparison here. Comparison. Shut that off. Hope that wasn't bugging you guys like crazy. It was starting to bug me.
Oh, you fan?
Yeah, it's starting to drive me nuts. Well, this is weird. Can't find it now. Let's see. Oh, it's because I'm thinking of Sacsayhuaman. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Sacsayhuaman. I think that's how they spell it with the Englishization. Here we go. These are those massive blocks.
Oh, yeah, there. They're there.
Zezia.
Oh, Zezia.
Let's see. Those are giant blocks. Let's do that. Giant stones.
Oh, yeah. But then we're going to go to Baalbek. And honestly, we're beating a horse that we've already ridden, guys.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff's all
go to
there.
The megaliths. And we can't be done. We barely touched the surface.
So crazy. It's so crazy. That's
and the reason that they even matter, other than the mystery of how in the heck were those things transported and then put one upon the other by just humans, there's not an answer. It is not wet sand and trees.
Here, check this out.
And
this is one of
pulley
those famous
system.
ones.
Oh, there's Baalbek. There's the
Baalbek,
pregnant lady.
Yep. It's crazy. Look at that. I mean, it's a single piece. It's a single quarry piece.
I have tried to think of how you would transport that on
Holy
trucks.
crap, look at that.
Oh, while the people standing on it. That's great.
Oh,
That's
man.
a newer picture. We've not seen that one before.
I have not seen that. No, that's very cool. That's unfathomable,
That's
frankly.
a lot of people. Does it say how many?
Let's visit it. We can check it out real quick. There's like 73. No, I'm kidding. There's a lot of people on there.
It looked like more than 73 people.
Yeah, agreed. The stone will come velvet. No, but
Just tell us how many people it is. That's a lot.
that's cool.
Don't try to...
Oh, check that out.
Oh, that's really great that you were able to make it so large. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Dude, I'm not counting all those people,
like
but I'm going to go with about 100.
60 to 70 people, probably. That's what that looks like. That's unbelievable. And that's not even the whole stone. Look, that stone is under the earth. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So anyway, to bring it back, and I'm going to stop sharing here. To bring it back home here. Oh. Sorry, Shel.
Megaliths are mega big.
Yeah. To bring it back home, they're just ridiculously big. They clearly are not human technology, because we just can't even do that. And a lot of people would disagree with us. They'll say, no, we've just lost it. It's an ancient civilization that's lost the ability to... I'm like, sorry, bro, I don't buy it. There's a lot of other theories we can go into, but I'm not going to bore you with those. You can go check out megaliths, and you can, dispute it with us all day if you want to. That's fine. We'll be happy to talk about
the ways that maybe we figured out some form of levitation device, M-state gold in reverse mass. I mean,
Yep.
Our science is not there yet.
And that's the argument, right? That it was, and I agree that it was, but I don't think it was. I do not even believe at all that it was because of us. It was given to us.
No, I don't think it was. The technology exists. Certainly. It is not human technology.
That's right.
It is the technology of the heavens, of the angels.
Indeed.
And megaliths cannot be replicated today. We can't do it. That's the thing about them, that we try. You get every so often teams of people who try, and
try though they may,
they don't succeed.
And what's curious about that, you were talking about how, like, trying to compare it to something, as far as weight goes. The curious thing about megaliths is that they're single stone blocks that are literally sometimes over 200 tons each. I watched a video not that long ago, about the time we were talking about megaliths, where an industrial size, like a full bed semi truck, tried to put a 20-ton block, a single 20-ton block, and it was bottoming out. It was about to destroy the wheels on that truck. It couldn't take the 20-ton block. And I'm like,
well, yeah,
dude,
no.
Every one of those is what's on the Great Pyramids. Like, every single one of those blocks weighs that amount, if not more. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyway.
A standard truck bed is meant to haul no more than 80,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's is that a 3-axle truck? And
yep.
The axles can move. I did a benefit to having a husband who's trucker.
Oh, that's cool.
You get to know these things.
That's very cool, actually.
So that they can balance the load bets. You can move your axles, the center one or center ones, but still 80,000 pounds. That's what you get. 4 tons. That's 4 tons, not 20 tons. So 5 times that is not going to fit on.
And that's one of the smaller blocks, frankly.
It is one of the smaller blocks, frankly.
Which is why it's just so unbelievable.
Must you?
I like that cat.
That's because she doesn't do all the shenanigans.
I know.
on
She's
your
sweet. She's so
side.
sweet. She just says,
She is very
"Hi."
sweet. She is the queenie girl. She's like, look at my beautiful tail. Isn't
I see it.
lovely?
There it is. So that is Megaliths, guys. We're not going to beat a dead horse. That's kind of just what we want to talk about. You know, in Machu Picchu, they use these kind of things for ritualistic stuff, which we'll be talking about more in the future. I don't know if they're in particular, perhaps, but they used them to measure the solstices, the equinoxes. These were called sun observatories, and they were used for sun and moon cult rituals. So these were very alive places, so to speak. And other places like it. Now, we're going to move on real quick to ziggurats and go back over that real quick. Ziggurats are essentially a more minimal version of the same thing, and I will pull up some, and I'll let you actually talk about this one, Shaw. I think you define this a little bit better.
My favorite ziggurat is obviously Babel. And Babel, the gate of God.
Yes, indeed.
The world's most famous Stargate.
Which is highly debated on. Geez, I should mention, even though that I know we're talking about just ziggurats in general, but that particular ziggurat is highly debated what it actually was.
Well, and because there are several theories, and again, if you want to hear it, go back to our Babel episode.
Yeah,
and
I think it's called ziggurats, right?
Is that what we called it?
I think that episode is called
Nimrod,
ziggurats or something.
Babel,
it's episode 14 because it was right after Megalith. So if you watch Megalith,
you name these things, I seldom do. So there's contention that it was in Babylon,
yes,
or Eridu.
Pretty. I would say fairly more recently, it's become more contentious.
It has, because they have discovered. Oh, see, okay, so go down. Stop.
You look at this.
No, see the one there, right there.
This one.
See how big that base is?
Yeah. So
in Eridu, the ziggurat that is there, that is what's left of it, which is not a whole lot. Again, go back to the episode and you'll get it.
Yep.
Nimrod and his compatriots built upon that base.
Yeah. Oh, right. I'm glad you mentioned that.
So that base, believe it is megalithic, and then mankind built upon it with the goal of controlling the narrative, if you will, and and bringing the gods to man.
Yep.
Rather than the gods bringing man to the gods. I know, sorry, really bad sentence there. But
bring the gods down. Sorry, us going to the gods versus the gods coming down.
Right, because when we go to the gods have the seat of the power, and what mankind wanted was to usurp that power and not be under the power of the gods, but to have power over the gods. Maybe that's why they were doing the calling.
Yes, indeed. And maybe that's a really good way to explain it. Ziggurats are for going up to the gods, and Megaliths are for bringing the gods down. I mean, that might be kind of a pretty general way to say it. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't. Maybe. I'm going to have to think about.
I mean,
that
I'm not
a little
sold.
bit more,
I'm not sold on it, but it does make sense to me.
I think the megaliths were controlled by the Elohim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
To get a different toy. No, we're fighting over toys here. There, really. No, stop it. Go get a different toy.
I'm gonna hop off.
You have dozens of toys.
Sorry about that. Infinite loop.
Sorry, guys. The dog. They just don't share well. That's the bear. His brother has a toy. He really wants it.
Yeah.
It's like a 2-year-old toy. All the stuff. The only reason he wants it is because his brother has it. They're like,
of course.
Also, kind of fits with this whole ziggurat narrative. The one has the power, the other wants the power. Nobody wants to be subjugated to anybody. No. I mean, that's our problem with God. It's mankind's problem. I don't want to be told what to do.
Mankind's problems.
Mankind's problems.
That's what she said. I'm going to do a super quick aside. I don't know if anybody watched this series, and I actually stopped watching it because I don't think it's probably the best thing for my soul, but it was quite hilarious. There was a cartoon called Metalocalypse, and it was about this death metal band that was like the largest economy and power on the earth, and they had like this giant castle and all this ridiculous stuff. But one of the guitarists was Swissgard Squiggle was his name, and I want to say he was Scandinavian, I can't remember, but he always talks like this, always talks like the man do these things. It was very funny, made me laugh a lot. That's what reminded me of just now. Sorry, quick aside, coming back.
I don't even with that.
Use cans continues now.
Thanks. Use guys.
The
Ziggurats. A place we today would say a place of worship. But at least with Babel, it was not. It was a power play. One that God really didn't like. That is when he came down and befuddled and refused man's language. I mean, well, we were in rebellion, being led by a dude whose name means "let's rebel."
It's debatable.
And we were refusing to go and dominate the world. Instead, we wanted to just hang out in the city. So, I mean, lots of things there. Oh, no. Shh, you stop. You're just all night long. I'm telling you. And don't start with that song either. I knew you, Ricky.
I have a theme song for the Ziggurat Tower. Make it faster, building. No? Okay. All right. I'll stop. No more songs. No more songs
for you.
That's
no
enough.
More. Like Babel, mankind has built upon megaliths.
Yeah.
Which were already thin places.
It's a good topic.
I'm going to assume, and this is my assumption, people want to come at me with different opinions, go for it. This is only an opinion. The meddling of the Elohim and the Nephilim, the amount of blood and sacrifice that was shed at these places made them thin places. So they would be a good place to make a sacred place.
Yeah.
For mankind, because there was already something there.
Yeah. Solid.
Honestly, my research really into this parsed down and narrowed to tonight's topic is mountains. And in particular, I want to go with the mountains that are listed as holy in God's
and real
Word.
Quick, before you hop onto that train,
yes,
I want to mention this before we forget it, because we were just chatting about it, and you're like, well, I don't know about that. And I was like, well... So I thought it was really, really interesting. I had not thought about the fact that we didn't, but mankind had built upon megalithic ruins, right? Mm-hmm. For the purposes of reclaiming their spiritual quality, right? I guess we'll say. To convert
harnessing
them
the power somehow.
There's the better word, harnessing the power. To convert them into more effective spiritual sites post flood, or post post pre flood Nephilim. So I believe that I totally agree with that. The sacrificial portion of that, and if nothing else, even just the spilling of blood, whether or not it's ritualistic, is the spilling of blood nonetheless. The Lord, the Word of God tells us that that's why God is furious with Abel in the first place, right? Sorry, with Cain in the first place.
Cain.
That he has spilled his brother's blood, and that the very earth itself cries out to God. So, to me, that was the Spirit. That was the Holy Spirit, because I needed that verse to kind of confirm and make that stuff work. That's interesting. I will, right now when I'm talking, I will have this verse posted so you guys know exactly where to go back. It's in Genesis, in the very first few chapters. Easy to find, but I'll have it listed here anyway.
2-4-6.
Yes, indeed.
After 3.
Yes. Somewhere in between. You have a small window. So, essentially, that's exactly, well, not essentially, that's exactly what happens. God says, hey, your brother's blood is crying out to me. So I proposed to Shelley, and actually, I don't think it's a proposition. I think it's legit. I really, really do. And you're going to be like, well, you can think that, but you need to back it up. Well, one, I just did with the Word of God.
Exactly.
And I'm okay with that. That's fine.
And I'm not, I'm not.
No,
totally
it's good. You want to make sure that there's some that there's some logical backing and spiritual backing for what we're going at. And both things are super important. So one that's not the only one, but that's one spiritual backing for why I believe that, and I'm getting to my point here, stones, the earth, all of it has memory. And I've talked to Shelley.
I saw your face. I saw that thought go through your mind. Is when you said the ground cries out. I knew that's that you were doing the rock memory.
Yes, absolutely. and that's why I wanted to get to it, because before we get started, and that really also helps. No pun intended. That helps lay a foundation for the idea that liminal places do have spiritual value of some kind, right? There has to be a reason for it. And I'm going to go from stone, and I'm going to mention water as well. I don't know if we're going to get to water in this podcast, because this is going to be long. We're going to do our best to get through it. But so I've already given you that the ground cries out for your brother's blood.
Genesis 4:10. BT
there you go. Thank you. Genesis 4:10. But also, I used the example with Shelley that we use rocks to record digital information. I don't see why it should be any different between the spiritual. We've already kind of elaborated that we personally don't think that there's a difference between what people would call magic and what people call science. It kind of just blends together. In my mind, it's more like that's the way God made it. It's just those are properties of the nature of the realm that we exist in, and those can be, not to beat a dead horse, those can be modified through dimensionality. That's my view. That's my personal view. And so I would say that if we already have that in place, right, and we also know that the Word tells us, hopefully you can look this one up for me as well, Shell, that if no one were to praise God, that the rocks would cry out in our place. Yeah. Which is an old church thing. If I don't want any rock crying out in my place, kind of idea. But it is actually a very cool thought. Like the rocks themselves would begin to release some sort of glory that would exalt God all the more. That's kind of crazy. So that for rocks, Luke, and I also want to mention. 40. What is it?
Luke 19, verse 40.
Luke 19:40. Cool.
But he answered and said to them, I tell you that if these should keep silent, the stones would immediately cry out.
What's the context right before that?
You're going to make me look up Luke 19.
Tell me when you're there. It's okay. I'm gonna roll on to water. So I believe water's the same thing. And I'm going to end, when I finish talking about water and earth, I'm going to tell you just kind of one of my own thoughts. And I'm toying with it, and I'm trying to understand it. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we'll see further down the road. So water, also has memory, and this one's actually even more of a provable thing. There are, I want to say there were Japanese scientists that did an experiment on frozen water. Excuse me, not frozen water. That they would have just regular water, like in some sort of container, and then they would put and it didn't matter which language, by the way. They use Chinese, they use English, they use French, they use Japanese, and they would put these words, one that was positive and affirming, and another that was negative or degrading, or an insult of some kind. And what do you think happened? So they take water droplets from each of these sets, one with the positive words, one with the negative words. They freeze them, then they take them out under a microscope, and as the microscope begins to warm up the droplet, when you have words like love, then you get an absolutely beautiful snowflake-looking thing. I mean, just crystalline, fractal, gorgeous, just perfect geometry, sacred geometry, stuff like that, right? But when you would have like a negative word, the opposite would happen. You would get something that was just so distorted, it was blurry, it wasn't forming properly. And they did this with other stuff too, right? They did this with peaceful kind of sounds, or call it whatever you want. I mean, you would get these kind of structures. But when you would play, and I'm not knocking it, I'm a metal fan, but when you would play metal music to water, it would just be like this dissonant thing. There was nothing beautiful about the water itself. And so from a scientific perspective, I mean, water absolutely has memory. And I could give you guys some other examples about stuff like that, where water actually copies the image of whatever it sees. Like, it literally will see an image and it's able to copy that. I'll look it up and find it if you guys are interested.
Well, I guess that's what we would think of for water reflection.
Yes. Oh, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And so, I mean, I'm not going to give, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I mean, I guess baptism is a type of actual memory. The sins are washed away. They're literally taken away by the water. And
Mikvahs.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to think about it.
Well, I've always thought of that as being more
ritualistic.
Substitutionary. There's another word that I want. Meaning this, but being that. What is that? Symbolic.
Oh yeah.
More of a symbolic thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. It's really the first thing that came to mind. I was like, water.
But well, and we have time. We'll get more into water memory, and we'll talk about holy.
Hydrology is a crazy field.
Hydrology
super cool.
Fantastic scientific study.
Water's a crazy thing, man. It really is.
Like truly.
So,
but
I wanted to. Oh, go.
That will be later. Well, I was going to go back to the mountain.
I'm going to close with a single thought to kind of tie this off with the bow real quick.
Hold on. Sorry, you had asked the connotation.
Context. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll start at verse 37. Then, as he was now drawing near the descent of the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." And some of the Pharisees called to him from the crowd, "Teacher, rebuke your disciplines." Your disciples. I am tired.
Well, they are disciplined. That's why they're disciples.
I mean, they are disciplined. That's why they are his disciples. That is true. But he answered and said to them, "I tell you, if these should keep silent, the stones would immediately cry out." So this is
that's cool.
This is right before Jesus speaks that judgment against Jerusalem, and it's heavy.
Oh, that's intense.
But yeah, that's where
was he
we
talking
are.
About the stones in the present place that they were at? Maybe that's what he was referring to. frankly, that would actually...
You'd have to really break it down to see exactly.
But I would say if that is the case, that would actually lend more credence to the fact that the rocks have memory. That's crazy. Okay.
Well, coming down out of the Mount of Olives, which is right there in...
Just saying.
The mountain chain of Jordan anyway, so the Judean mountains.
The Judean mountains. So I was just gonna say, having said all that, this is a personal belief of mine, and I don't, well, I shouldn't say belief, but this is a thought that I've really been toying around with in my head, and I have some really good reasons for thinking it. I think I said this on not on last Friday's live. I kind of think everything that exists is alive. And I don't mean, I'll clarify my statement and I'll qualify my statement again. I don't mean I think everything is God. I do not think that. There is a single God worthy of adoration and praise. There are other gods that are not worthy of adoration and praise, but are gods nonetheless. But there's a single entity who is worthy. He's a triune God, and so he is the only one worthy and the only one who is truly, truly sovereign God.
The creator.
And so having said that preface, I have begun to believe that the rocks, that the dust in all of existence, that obviously the plants, but the water itself, all the chemicals that God has made, that they all have life in some aspect. I don't think that is the same quality or qualitatively like you and I would call life, but it is curious to me that they seem to respond and obey. I mean, there you go, right? When Jesus calms the waves in the middle of a storm, they said, "Who is this that commands the waves?" And even they obey him. So, I mean, sure, it could just be nature and it could be dead, but I don't know, man. And if you're curious why I think that, I'll leave that for a later episode. We're not going to get too far down that rabbit hole. Go ahead, Shel. Mountains.
That's really good, actually. Oh man, where we have gone.
Where do we start? Good Lord.
Right, so much.
You want to do one and then I'll do one? Jeez.
Let's go to, okay, so for me, the holy places in Israel.
Yeah.
The thin places, the places that we know heaven and earth have met. When I think about them, the mountains do come to mind. Mountains and the Jordan River in particular. And I don't know if we'll get to the Jordan or not. It definitely falls under the water in case,
that was a terrible
you didn't
pun.
know the Jordan was a river.
That was a terrible pun.
Didn't
the
even
Jordan
mean
falls,
for it to be a pun.
The water.
Oh, that's great because
the
Jordan means descends.
Oh, very true.
There's so much there.
Speaking that, geez, that's like, I mean, this is like multiple layers of double meaning or triple, quadruple meaning. There's a really great song that I really like, and that I'm not super big on worship songs, but there's a really cool, I really enjoy him, and he's a lot more mainstream. His name is Jordan Feliz. You ever listen to that guy?
I really like Jordan Feliz.
I do too. He's really, really cool. He's a really good artist as well. He's really talented.
Really good music.
I mean, I'm like, the one that we would play over and over is, I'm going down to the river, down to the river. All right, so anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I like that song.
Go ahead, Shel, sorry.
Oh, good. See how you are. Mountains. Have we talked before about Eden being the holy mountain?
Let's lift this bad boy right out of
and also
Mike
a garden. Man, I mean, I don't even have this down in my notes, but I'm a fan of starting at the beginning, and that would be
do it, dude.
The place where the council of God met, where Adam and Eve were put. God puts them
You're gonna love the Chinese garden, man.
In Eden. Oh yeah, I can see why. Yeah,
Yep.
the correlations.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's mirrored after heaven. And it's the place where God meets Adam and Eve. The word says he came and walked with them in the cool of the evening. Like that seems to be the time God likes to take his strolls. Yeah, on this earthly plane.
As one does.
As one does. It's that or get up early in the morning when you live in the desert. So.
Right. There you go.
It's the Mount of Assembly. As a matter of fact, it's where Halil in Isaiah 14 says, I will ascend.
I think that's right. Let me look it up.
Either Isaiah 14 or it's Isaiah 12.
Let's see.
It's 14.
You're right,
12.
14. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly.
On the Mount of Congregation.
I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High.
So, very specifically, he's talking about the Mount of Assembly, the Mount of Congregation that is above the clouds. It is Mount Olympus. It's more commonly recognized as Mount Olympus. The Mount of the Gods, the Mount of the Assembly of the Gods, than it is as Eden. But Eden is just I'm not even sure how to describe it. Eden is created off the template. It's a copy. That's the word I'm looking for. That's the way to say it. It's a copy of the heavenly Mount of Assembly. And it's like the temple, man, and the temple is another holy place. It's another thin place. But God says, be sure to get every dimension exactly right, because it's a copy of a heavenly place. And I don't know how many of these thin places have a heavenly other side of the doorway. I know we see it with Eden. We see it with the temple. Maybe we see it also with the dimensions more of Israel. Maybe it's just more of the dimensions with the temple, which is the heart of Jerusalem. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean Israel. I meant Jerusalem. But the temple is the heart of Jerusalem. This place is so holy, and it's such a portal, such a thin place that when we fall and we are kicked out of the garden, God places angels to guard it with, I don't know, some weird sword, fiery sword that tick-tocks. I don't know. It's a very interesting concept that it doesn't lend itself well to Western ways of thinking. I don't know. It's very foreign to me. But that is the first holy mountain I can think of but certainly not the only one. But I think right here, Rick, if you want to talk about the garden,
certainly
the Oriental gardens, I think you're right. There's a really strong tie there.
And actually, I want to start from, since we're going with creation, that seems like a good place to start with other cultures and what the way that they filter the information about creation is super interesting as well. And I'm going to stick with the mountain theme, because we are on mountains and there's a lot to it, man. Holy moly, there's a lot to it.
So much.
So much.
All over on just about every continent. We we didn't. There's not enough time. This is already going to be a long episode.
It is.
But we didn't get Australia or New Zealand. I don't even know. Well, we got Machu Picchu, which I guess qualifies as South Africa.
Yeah.
Gosh, Shelley, I've got to quit speaking. Oh, we didn't get anything in Africa.
No. I mean, we mentioned the pyramids. We did mention the pyramids. Not any particular
which are Egypt.
peaks.
It's true.
But
but there's and in Africa there's like Table Mountain.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do some
extremely holy,
legit research on Africa.
So much.
There's a ton, dude, and we're like, I mean, it's not just the potential Atlantis.
Well, and the whole water thing, the water thing in Africa is like, I don't know, other than the Jordan River, maybe the most powerful water to me.
Sacred stuff, man. It's funny that we talk about sacred. No, it's not funny. Let me rephrase that. I think that we as Western Christians are terrified to be blasphemous. But God made everything, and He made things sacred, and I think that's okay to talk about, and I think that's okay to feel and believe and be honest about. I'll be really, really frank here, and this is just an aside. That's why the rest of the world doesn't take us seriously when we talk about Jesus a lot of times, is because we don't know how to treat the sacred things sacred. I'm not telling you to bow down and worship any other god. I would never say that. There's no other god worthy of worship. There's no other god who can rule over us with, I mean, not even having to think about it. I mean, he could do nothing and we would just cease to exist. All of us, everything that is would cease to exist in not even an instant, like less than an instant. It would not be there. So I think that if we took God's creation and God's original purposes more seriously and considered what He thinks to be important, if we treated it like that, I think people would be way more open to hear what the Word of God says. Their walls would come down a lot more. Not always, right? I mean, there's people that are resistant because they're resisted, but we would do ourselves a grand favor in the grand scheme of things. To use grand twice. Coming back to the creation myth about mountains. So I'm just going to read this straight off because I think it's super relevant. This is from a really, really interesting book, speaking of sacred places, literally called Sacred Landscapes. I don't know if you guys can read it.
Yeah.
The threshold between worlds. Really, really good. It was a very good overview for me. It was I really like this book because it's got tons of visuals, but it's got really good information from a lot of cultures, and I'll flip through if you want to here in a little bit. But I'm just going to read this straight from there. I want to give credit where credit is due. It's super interesting. In the creation myth of early cultures, the Earth's revolving axis is the navel of the world, known as the axis mundi. Because the stars and planets in the night sky appear to revolve around the North Pole star. For the nomadic people, the pole star remains in the same place in the sky and yet moves with them wherever they wander. This divine tent pole links above and below and is the path by which gods descend to earth and by which humans ascend to the realm of deities. Mountains are thus revered because they appear to provide access to the axis of the world above. The sacred mountains is where Moses was given the tablets of the law. And here, Zen, I don't know why it says Honda, Zen, Buddhism, and Taoist sages alike meditate. Likewise, many European cultures make references to that of the Magic Mountain. Not to be confused with Disney. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I was getting getting too sacred for you guys there. So I want to talk for a second about, geez, there's a lot here. You want me to move into, I guess, the Chinese garden? As you guys may know, I am a linguistics major. I am also a major in Chinese, Mandarin, and I'm also a major in East Asian Studies, which is essentially China, Japan, and Korea and all that. I don't have a major in each one of those. I have a major with one of them, and then the other two count as minors, so don't think that I'm too far up there. I should have taken a few more classes, and I would have gotten a major in every one, but it is what it is. My wife is going to kill me. She's like, can you please freaking finish college? Be done already. So I want to talk to you guys real quick about, I guess since we're on this path of the tree, where's the best way to come about this at? Maybe we should talk about Feng Shui first. Feng Shui is an easy, common topic for a lot of Americans. They're pretty familiar with the words, sort of the ideas,
the concept. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Feng Shui, which is how it's properly pronounced in Mandarin, is wind and water. That's what it literally means. It literally means wind and water. And I literally had to go dig up some notes on this because it was like, oh gosh, I forgot all this stuff and I have to remember. So now I remember. But it is, and this is a really good explanation, Feng Shui means a quasi-scientific system supposed to teach men where and how to build graves, temples, and dwellings in order that the dead, the gods, and the living may be located therein exclusively, or as far as possible under the auspicious influences of nature. The reason that this is so important is because it really just feeds into Chinese thought in general. And the Chinese were infamous for blurring the line between philosophy and religion, which, frankly, your philosophy is part of your cosmovision, right? So
right. They definitely are closely linked. Absolutely.
Super. So I think that maybe that's a problem in the West about the way we think about things. And frankly, the Chinese were kind of confused about what they thought about religion too. Like they got a grasp on it, but they never knew whether they were coming or going because everything was so philosophical for them. Well, I guess what's important to talk about here is that the mountain was also the place to commune. And in pretty ancient Chinese thought, everyone I'm sure here knows about Daoism. They've heard the Taoism. Whoa! The Tao, which is known as the Way. Dao Wuzhi, which is he who follows the way of things, essentially. And what that means is that we would basically find a way to be just to keep it real simple, be harmonious with nature. And I don't think that that's altogether rubbish. I really don't, because so much of our contact with God we've lost because we're hustling and bustling all the time. I'm not telling you to go become, an acro yoga enthusiast or a yogi or anything like that. I'm not going that route. I'm just saying places are sacred.
No, we were not supposed to be single city dwellers.
You're cutting out, dude. I can't hear you well.
Sorry, we were not supposed to be city dwellers.
Yeah. No, we weren't.
That was
very explicit in the Bible.
Go back to Babel.
Yep. And I should say here that another important aspect about this is that the Taoist would go up into the mountain to meditate. and to become one with nature. And this was typically not someone who was. They were essentially like monks. They would isolate themselves for the most part, but it wasn't isolating for isolating's sake. And I found some really good information about how I wanted my thoughts to come across, because I haven't heard this stuff in so long, so my thoughts were kind of jumbled. But what really makes sense, and what's a really good explanation, is that essentially and I'm going kind of specifically with the Tao because it has to do with the mountains a lot, although it was not foreign to Buddhists to go and meditate and do the same kind of thing in China either, right? But they would really commune with nature and do it in such a way that everything was a cycle. So if something would die, it would come back, and it would be used, it would be recycled for another reason. So that's why, for example, the Taoist would think that plastics are an aberration to man because they have a single use and they're gone. Which, I mean, frankly...
They got some legitimacy to that, honestly.
Yep.
We're supposed to be good stewards.
We are indeed.
And filling our landfills with plastics and our oceans with plastics is not good stewardship. It's not.
And granted, we've done better. I mean, I won't say that we've, like it's a worst thing on earth, but I mean, they are artificial products, right? Anyway, I could go on and on about plastics and all sorts of stuff that we make and use to pollute. I'm not telling you don't use plastics. Please don't misunderstand my train of thought here.
No, but think twice before you're so disposable.
Certainly. Think about how good of a steward you are or are not being. Totally advocate for that as well. Buy paper.
Well, use reusable cups.
Yeah.
Fill them from the fountain, and I don't need to go through half a dozen little plastic bottles a day.
Don't be like me drinking.
Well, at least it's a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, refill it. So you refill it, right?
Indeed. I was out and about and I forgot my water jug. It was the only reason.
You have to have water.
Yes, you don't want to die.
We're in Texas.
We are in Texas, good Lord. So, because there was such a sacred kind of way that there was an extension, and I don't want to go too far into it. You guys, if you guys want on some other episode, I'd be happy to break this stuff down. It is extremely deep and extremely complicated. I mean, Chinese philosophy's pretty deep. But what really kind of drew me in was the way that Confucians, which is people that just followed what Confucius taught, Taoists and all sorts of stuff like that, they were all very in tune with the mountains. The mountain is the place where the gods and themselves connected. And what's really cool is if you had enough money and you had enough space and you had a large estate, what you would do is build a miniature garden in your home. And if you guys have ever been to, I don't know how many people we have here from Texas watching, but if you live in San Antonio or near San Antonio, there's a really cool garden. It's called the Japanese Tea Garden. And it's built on the same principles, basically on the Zen Buddhist kind of temple, kind of concepts. And there's a lot of bleed over between all these kind of philosophies in China, okay? And frankly, in East Asia. What I'm really going for, though, is every time that you would walk around, let me see if I have my notes here. This would be even more useful. So the importance of a Chinese garden would be that the Chinese garden was a reflection of the cosmos. It was a microcosm of the actual cosmos. So what would happen? It was literally meant to recreate the spontaneity and the beauty of the cosmos. And what better place, I don't know if venerate is the word of the mountain. Perhaps it was venerated to some level, but really the Chinese were very conscious that if there was any kind of gods, that's where you're going to find them. Same kind of idea. And the really cool thing about these mini imitation gardens, this was like a whole enterprise. People would pay big money to have these gardens installed. And what was the purpose of them? Yes, to recreate the cosmos on a micro level, but also the surprise scenery as you walked around a new space. You would constantly come into a new aspect. And that's just like when you go up on a mountain, if you ever really go up on a mountain and just enjoy what you're doing, I mean, there is a closeness with God if you want it to be there, right?
Like, it's not difficult at all to see God's hand in the mountains. Like,
and as you
desert mountain,
oh, beautiful,
cool mountain, like it does not matter.
It really doesn't.
The mountain, you get there and you're with the trees and you hear the water and you hear the birds and man, the air is fresher. Just like there's something to be said about a mountaintop experience. It's a legit thing.
Yeah, it really is. And I it's actually kind of cool that we're doing this episode because I don't think I have appreciated the mountains as much as I probably should, that God put here on the earth for us. Another really cool thing is that the recreation of a giant mount of what would otherwise be another giant mountain range, having it in a small version in your home, was to accentuate the differences between yin and yang, which I'm sure you guys will also know very well, right? You would be able to focus on the darker aspects or the more chaotic aspects, but then you could also focus on the lighter aspects and the more, I won't say positive. There's just this, that's the whole duality.
It's a balance, concept. Right? Yeah, it's the whole balance.
It's not weird in ancient cultures. It's weird for us because it's just like, oh, it's just God and that's it, But that's really not. That's not the gist of it. God, has made both of them, frankly, and they would use this opportunity to contemplate and or meditate. I should say meditate and or contemplate rather. It was also a symbol of prosperity, and what better explanation of prosperity than to reflect the Garden of Eden, frankly. Right. I mean, that's where there was abundance. And I love, I was telling this, I don't know if I told you about this the other day, Shell, that I had never really understood a lot of idiosyncrasies about the Garden of Eden until I was reading Heiser's book the other day and I read the chapter on it. And it kind of blew my mind because I was like, oh man, the Garden of Eden was perfect, but the rest of the earth wasn't. And so he gave us the Garden of Eden to tend to it because it was already fine, but the rest of the world would need work. Now, that doesn't mean that it's evil. It just means that there's something to do, right? So, yeah, this was the place of the gods. This was the place of the meeting with the gods. And this is the place where for the Chinese, this is where they would find oneness with the gods, where they were able to come and commune with the gods. And that, of course, right? Ancient China is a very different way and concept of dealing with things, right? They viewed things really through filial piety and how you were serving your common man, or the opposite, which is Daoism, retiring into the mountains.
Which is what I was going to say too. So the gods in their estimation, was it really communing with the gods or communing with their ancestors? Ancestors?
And the question is how much difference is there, right? We've kind of gone into this topic, right? And if you're venerating your ancestors, well, sure, that's one thing, right? And we've talked about this actually on the live on Friday, which was a really cool conversation. Hey, do you believe that you can see when you're having a near-death experience or you're on your last leg, passing away?
A deathbed experience.
Do you see your family members? And why not? Absolutely. If you know where you're going, God's like, hey man, you want to go walk with him upstairs? Bring him up here so we can chat.
I mean, Stephen beheld Christ.
Yeah. Yep.
In his stoning.
Yep. I don't see why not. It's.
I don't either, but there's a difference between worshiping the ancestors, venerating the ancestors, certainly, and God letting, your beloved wife, child, parent, whomever, be the one to guide you into heaven.
Well, and as we talked about, right? Like the Chinese believed that the mountain was a place to make sure. Sorry, Feng Shui was a whole dynamic and thought about making sure that we placate our ancestors so that we live a good life and that they receive what they need and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's a little, and seeking guidance from them, like that's a little bit different, like making sure that we placate them so that they provide us fortune and all that kind of stuff. Um, I won't tie this directly to the same thing, but I will say, and I won't, I won't apologize for it because it is what I believe. You can differ with me if you do, and that's okay. But any kind of veneration of the saints to me is the same ball game.
Well, it is exactly the same, except you may not have a blood tie.
Yeah.
To the saint that somebody who venerates the ancestors.
Yeah.
Believes they have a blood tie. I think though all of that still, you're right, harkens back to the veneration of little g gods.
Yep, it absolutely does. And if you're Catholic and you're angry at me, I am sorry. We will differ on this theological point. I do not think there is any reason to be talking to any of the saints that have moved on. They are living in glory, and we are here fighting a whole different beast. No pun intended.
And the thing is that we are the saints.
Yep.
We are the saints, and the Word of God says that don't sin, but when you do, know that you have a mediator who stands at the right hand of God,
Correct.
Interceding for us all the time, and that is Jesus.
Yep.
We don't need somebody else to go to Jesus. He came to us so that we could be with him. He doesn't. There's no need for anybody between him and us. He loves us. He came and literally separated everything that was between us and him.
Right.
He moved it and said, "Here, I am your way."
Yep. And oh, sorry.
That's where veneration of the saints, or praying to the saints, or praying to Mary, muddies the water. And I don't think Rick is saying that you can't still know Christ.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But I believe that it affects the deepness of your relationship with Christ.
Yeah. And furthermore, the only thing I was going to say is Christ is the mediator and the paraclete is the helper. We don't need anyone else to help us. I mean,
right.
Those that have moved on, and those of us that are here, well, that's why we're the brethren, and that's why we gather. We don't gather with saints that have perished and moved on to the afterlife, right? We don't gather with them.
No.
I mean, that's kind of the, I'm not equating these two. Please don't think that when I say this, but that's kind of the Bethel Redding thing when they do the kind of grave soaking. No.
Right.
We're not going to do that. Right? You see what I'm saying?
There is no godly power in there.
It's a slippery slope. Not the God we serve anyway. But anyway, coming back to that. So that is really the importance and the reflection in the mountain itself. And for the Taoist, man, retiring into solitude to really allow nature to progress and you alongside it was really part of it, and obtaining this kind of wisdom, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, where did you receive all that enlightenment? You received it in the midst of nature, in the midst of the mountain, retired into a quiet, solitary place. And a lot of like Westerners tend to think, oh, that's super depressing. He's alone on the mountain. No. That was a very, very religious decision for a lot of
individuals. I'd be happy to live alone with Danny in the mountain.
Yeah, exactly. But exactly, these guys would live alone, or women would do it too. They would live alone,
right?
So, but it was not a depressing thing. It was a I've decided to do this for spiritual purposes kind of thing.
It's the same. it's the same as there's a Socratean
Socratean
philosophy of this too, and I can't think of it. It's a difference between,
like, are you talking about communing with nature? Is that what you're referring to?
no, talking about basically denying your
negation
baser.
of self. Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of what it's called off the top of my head.
I can't
honestly.
either right now. I can think of Hellenistic and Epicurean, and neither of those is it.
No, it sure is not.
Aesthetic?
Well, doesn't that have to do with like the physical quality of something?
No, not that aesthetic. I'll get it. Sorry, guys.
No biggie.
But it's that you're more godly the more you deny yourself.
Oh yeah, well,
mentality.
I mean that's it. I mean, you can see what, because that's the premise of Buddhism, right? I mean, you could see why Buddhism made a very, very easy entrance into China when you're already thinking about self-sacrifice for the greater good and things like that, right? I mean, that, you know, denialism is right along that path. Did you want to cover anything from here regarding mountains, or you want me to keep going, or?
Yeah, I want to go to my favorite mountain.
Do it. Yeah, I think it's good. We should trade off.
My favorite holy mountain by far is Mount Moriah. Where Abraham was called upon to sacrifice his son of the promise.
I told you what that word means in Spanish, right?
Moriah?
Moriah?
What?
Moriah means like it was dying.
Really?
Yeah.
It means chosen of God in Hebrew.
Not quite the same in Spanish.
No, Moriah means chosen of God. It's interesting, and I just read it last night. It's the only reason it's sticking in my head, but what a good name.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's where Abraham prophesies the coming of the Lamb. God himself will provide the sacrifice, the Lamb. It's where the temple was eventually built, where where Jesus died. It's where Jesus left his blood, his DNA. So if it wasn't already holy, and there was a sacrifice there when Abraham, and Isaac went up to the mountain, and God stayed the hand of Abraham from taking the life of his son. There was a ram in the thickets. And again, our Easter episode, we talked at length about this. And and I'm an idiot, and I did not put two and two together that a ram is a sheep. It's males, a fully mature male sheep.
Well, both of us, we were both like, well, what is it? We spent like 5-10 minutes trying to figure it out.
And the whole time we were like, there's an Egyptian goddess. I'm telling you, there is.
I know, it's real. That's so funny.
So I felt like an absolute idiot. But that ram's blood, that ram's blood was sacrificed on Mount Moriah. I'm sure there were other sacrifices.
We're kind of losing you, Shell.
Oh, I don't know.
Audio wise.
Better?
It sounds like you're on, like ambiental, actually.
Oh, it's really odd.
I'm gonna.
So, Mount Moriah is holy. It only becomes more holy when the temple is built there by Solomon and sacrifices are done there at all times. But it was already holy. It was holy when, at least from the time that if God chose it and called it, God chose it, pretty much
Probably
guarantees it's going to be holy.
Yep.
Mount Moriah is in the Judean mountains. It includes, it's one of the mountains in the Judean mountain range, I guess is the better way to say that. And across from Mount Moriah is the Mount of Olives. And so that mountain chain is so important. Christ's feet were on both of those mountains, maybe all 7 of the mountains in that range. But he left from the Mount of Olives, and that's where he will return, is at the Mount of Olives. And it's very interesting because that area between those 2 mountains, the Kidron Valley, is most likely where that very last battle that we call Armageddon, that area, the Ha Megiddo, is there on the Temple Mount. It's like a literal hop, skip, and jump from the Mount of Olives over to Temple Mount.
That's crazy.
I have so much that goes on in my head there with the final battle between Hillel and Yeshua there. That's an amazing mountain to me, and it is so contentious. It's such a contentious area. Why?
It sure is.
A little swath of mountainy area in the Judean desert. And it's been fought over for millennia.
Yeah. Millennia.
It's amazing. And for some reason, most of the classifications that I listen to about holiest sites, most sacred sites on the world, it would put Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, for the Wailing Wall, which is the western wall of the temple, as the number 2 most holy place on the planet. The craziness of the most contentious land on the planet.
Yeah.
The Judean mountainside. I don't know. To me, Mecca is not more holy than that. I know I'm not Muslim, and I get it. And but this is a thin place. Apparently, some weird stuff has been happening in Mecca lately that lend some credence to it maybe being a thin place too. I don't know.
Oh, I'm very sure it's a thin place, particularly because of the meteorite. That is such. I mean, that is
right.
A thing.
What is that thing called? The Kaaba. The Kaaba.
Mm-hmm. That's on one of the 4 corners.
Well, and Mecca is there in Saudi.
Yeah.
which is the area. Sorry, I had to look at my map.
You're good.
Which is the area that the Hebrews traversed between Egypt and Canaan. So, I mean, it that's not totally surprising to me. There's one other mountain that I really wanted to discuss, and it's a mountain that has many names.
Okay, do it.
Mount Hermon,
of course,
right? Where the Book of Enoch tells us that Semjaza, and his 200 cohorts came down and decided that they would make a pact and give mankind technology in exchange for taking their women as wives.
Hey guys, as you probably remember, this one was a doozy, so thanks for bearing with us. We have the second half that's going to be releasing real shortly in about a day or two, so just stay tuned, and we'll be back with you guys. God bless, Shalom, and Maranatha, as always. Love you guys. Thank you for watching this episode of The Christian Theological Dark Web. For questions or comments, please email us at thechristiantheologicaldarkweb@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, please look for the Patreon link in the description. This has been another production of CTDW Studios. Thank you, and God bless.